My wife joked about meeting someone better, so I quietly changed the locks, took back control, and ended a marriage she thought was unbreakable. She stood at the end of the hallway, hair curled, heels too high for comfort, spritzing on perfume she hadn't worn since our honeymoon. Not the citrusy one she wore every day. No, this one was different. Richer, darker, expensive. Something you don't put on unless you want to be remembered by someone new. I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed, watching her fidget with the gold clasp of a purse she never carried unless she wanted to be noticed. "Why the new dress?" I asked like I was asking about the weather. Calm, measured. She didn't miss a beat, didn't look at me, just kept digging in her purse, then said it like it was a joke she'd rehearsed a dozen times, in case I meet someone better. And then as she smiled, it wasn't nervous, wasn't shy. It was that confident smirk she used to wear when she still respected me, back when teasing meant flirting and not testing. That smile, it told me everything I needed to know. I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I finally understood. Not rage, not heartbreak, just clarity. She walked out with that same arrogant sway in her hips, the kind she only used when she wanted to remind people she could still turn heads at 51. The front door clicked behind her. I didn't follow, didn't text, didn't ask when she'd be back. Instead, I walked straight to the den. Behind the painting of the cabin we never got around to building, there was a safe. She never asked what I kept in there. Most people assume guns or cash or old documents. She assumed it was boring stuff. Marriage makes people lazy like that. I spun the lock like I had 1,000 times before, but this time I wasn't looking for papers. I was starting the clock. First, the folder labeled contingency. Printed bank statements, copies of deeds, a prepaid SIM card, a list of contacts I'd kept for a reason I couldn't explain until tonight. Then the manila envelope with the locksmith's card, marked folded. Next was the USB drive, the one I backed up quarterly with account changes and business assets. Because when you co-own something with someone who hasn't looked you in the eye in 5 months, you learn to prepare for fire even before you smell smoke. I turned on my laptop. VPN burner login. I scheduled the locksmith for 8 a.m. sharp. I sent a quiet message to our estate lawyer. I flagged it as an urgent separation inquiry. No explanations, just a subject line. He'd know. I made sure of it when we first drew up the trust last year, and I added that clause just in case. She thought this was a marriage. I'd come to understand it was a contract. And tonight, she breached it glibly, publicly, and with enough smugness to sell tickets. You don't have to cheat physically to violate trust. Sometimes the betrayal is in the joke, the tone, the assumption that the man in the hallway will always be there watching, forgiving. She forgot who I was before the routine, before the mortgage, and the what do you want for dinner dances. Before she decided I was just safe. I wasn't safe. I was quiet. There's a difference. At 12:17 a.m., while she was probably sipping wine with Elise and Amber and making another dig about husbands who don't notice anymore, I was finalizing the new alarm codes, new locks, new passwords, new rules. She didn't know it yet, but she wasn't walking back into the same house tomorrow, and definitely not into the same marriage. The front door had always groaned slightly when opened. One of those things I meant to fix, like her habit of half laughing through insults. But tonight, when it shut behind her, it sounded final. And that sound, it didn't hurt. It cleared the air like a window finally opened after years of stillness. I didn't sit down, didn't pour a drink. I got to work. First, the locks. I'd already chosen the replacement set months ago. They were sitting in a box labeled garage supplies behind the golf clubs I stopped using when she stopped asking me to come along on weekends. Satin nickel finish, digital keypad, easy install, 2 hours, no mistakes. Next was the alarm system. She never bothered to learn the code, kept it on a sticky note in her wallet. I changed it to a string of numbers that meant something only to me now. Our anniversary, erased, my father's birthday. He always said, if you have to protect yourself from the people closest to you, you waited too long. Then the mail. I logged into USPS and forwarded everything to my work P.O. box. She never knew it existed because I never told her. It was the same address I used when I filed the business restructuring paperwork 6 months ago. The same time I created the new LLC because 6 months ago I noticed something. It wasn't cheating. Not yet. It was a shift. The way she started saying you instead of we. How she left dinners early, started coming home exhausted from work, but never remembered the meetings she said she had. The way she'd dress up for errands, but wore sweatpants around me. Her laughter started sounding like someone else's voice. So I prepped quietly, clinically. The joint account already emptied into separate accounts. Done in phases, so it wouldn't set off alarms. Her debit card was still active, sure, but not for long. At 3:43 a.m., I signed into the online banking system and revoked her access, canceled her card with a click. I left just enough in the old account for appearances, and the illusion fell with the soft hiss of the shredder chewing through our old photo album. Not out of spite, but necessity. You can't build forward if you keep looking back at a version of yourself that tolerated being treated like a footnote. I backed up everything. Emails, financial records, even our old texts. Not to weaponize, just to protect, because she had a way of rewriting history with a glass of wine and an audience. The last thing I did before sunrise was write a note. Not to her, to myself. You saw it coming. You chose not to beg. That's your freedom now. I folded it and slid it into the drawer beside my watch. Outside, the birds started chirping, streetlights flickered off, the city was waking up, and in that strange stillness I realized I didn't feel sad. I felt clean. She hadn't noticed. Not yet. She'd wake up in someone else's guest room, throw on her designer robe, check her phone, and expect things to go back to normal. Maybe she'd text a flirty apology. Maybe she'd act like her joke was harmless. Maybe she'd pretend last night never happened. But this home no longer waited for her. She pulled into the driveway like nothing had changed. One hand on the wheel, the other holding her phone, checking whatever filtered selfie she and Elise had taken over overpriced cocktails. Music low, engine humming, same car, same house, same stupid smirk on her face like the world was still wrapped in her perfume. She didn't see the lock was different, not right away. She got out, heels clicking with less confidence this time. Her hair was a little messier than when she left, but she clearly thought she still had the upper hand. She wore the same dress, still tight, still daring. Only now the makeup had cracked just slightly in the corners of her mouth. Subtle, but there. She slid the key in, turned, nothing. She looked down at the handle like it had betrayed her. Tried again, forced it this time. Still nothing. Now the smile wavered. She took a step back and looked up at the house. Lights on in the kitchen. From the hallway she could see the warm glow behind the curtains. Someone was home. Someone was in there. And not opening the damn door. She laughed once, short, forced. Oh, okay, she muttered to herself, loud enough for no one. Tried again, jiggled the key, then knocked lightly, then harder, then louder. Mark! She called through the door. Nothing. She bent down, peered through the side window. Still nothing. No movement, no shadow, just silence. Then she started texting. Hey babe, key's not working, LOL. Send. Waited. Nothing. Are you mad at me? Seriously? Nothing. She called, it went straight to voicemail. She waited, crossed her arms, looked around like maybe someone was watching, like this was some kind of prank. The laughter started to die in her throat. She banged again. Mark, open the door, it's not funny. Still nothing. Then it hit her. The car. His wasn't in the driveway, but that didn't mean he wasn't home, because he'd started parking around the corner a few months back. Said it was for the shade, but she knew it was just one of his weird routines. And suddenly, her mind tried to recall if she'd passed it on the way in, if she'd even noticed. Her thumb hovered over her screen. Another call. Voicemail. She turned back around to the door. Knocked again. With a harder fist this time. Mark, come on, let's not do this. I had a couple drinks. Don't be dramatic. But the door didn't care. It stayed shut. A neighbor's porch light flicked on across the street. She flinched, pulled her coat tighter even though the air was warm, adjusted her purse strap like it mattered. She checked her phone again. Opened their shared calendar, still synced. But the event tonight had a new title, Boundary Enforced. She banged one last time, waited, then slumped down onto the front step like a child who'd been locked out for breaking curfew. That's when she saw it. The mat. It used to say welcome, cute, harmless. Something she'd picked up at a boutique 2 years ago. Now it was gone. In its place, bare concrete, clean, unforgiving. Her smirk hadn't just vanished. It had been revoked. She crashed on her sister's couch like a teenager who got dumped at prom. Didn't say much. Claimed it was just a stupid mix-up with the locks. Told her sister Dana that Mark must have been asleep or maybe just in a mood. Dana offered wine. She took it, said she wasn't worried. But the way she scrolled her phone all night, refreshing messages that didn't exist, told a different story. She kept glancing at the time, expecting a sorry, babe, rough day, or even a passive-aggressive jab just to break the silence. But her notifications stayed stubbornly empty, except for one from Chase Bank confirming her card was declined at the wine shop on the way there. That was the first real crack. By morning, she looked worse. The foundation didn't hide the swollen eyes. The robe was dusty, too big, sleeves hanging. She still checked the front porch before breakfast, half expecting him to be there, maybe with flowers or sarcasm, maybe a silent standoff in the driveway. Instead, at 9:14 a.m., a courier van pulled up. Not Amazon. No smiley logo, just a guy in a gray polo holding a clipboard and a flat manila envelope. "Delivery for, Angela?" he said, unsure. "Signature required." She took it. No smile. No thank you, just a nervous breath. Inside, there was no apology, no explanation, just precision. The first document, a notarized property separation agreement. Her name nowhere on the title, just his and the trust he'd moved the house into, dated 8 months back. 8. Second page, account balances. 3 accounts listed, 1 joint, empty, 1 business, locked, 1 personal, his, full, intact, legally secured. The third item was what made her fingers freeze, a handwritten note on cream stationery. His unmistakably neat block letters. She read it once, then again more slowly. "Since you're meeting someone better, I'll make room." No rage, no cursing, just closure delivered in Helvetica. She stood there, envelope flopping in her hands like it was suddenly heavier. Dana walked in mid-sip from a chipped mug. "What's that?" Angela didn't answer. She walked to the dining table, sat down slowly, and reread everything 3 times. Then finally, she picked up her phone. First, she called Mark. It went straight to voicemail. Second call, again voicemail. Third call, denied. She texted, "Can we talk? I think you're overreacting. You didn't even let me explain." No reply. Then she typed something longer, erased it. Typed again, still nothing. She scrolled to his lawyer's number, hovered her thumb, then stopped because she remembered they shared that lawyer once. But the lawyer had always liked Mark more. Professional respect, he called it. She called it boring. Now it felt more like foresight. She sat back, blinked. The house wasn't hers. The money wasn't hers. Even the story wasn't hers anymore, and for the first time in years she realized something horrifying. Mark hadn't gotten colder overnight. He just stopped pretending to be warm. 2 days later, she dressed like she hadn't slept on a couch. Her blowout perfect, her lipstick confident. That same red dress she once said was too much for brunch. Now apparently just enough to remind everyone she was still composed, unshaken, in control. Because if there's one thing Angela hated more than being wrong, it was looking weak. They met at a trendy patio cafe, the kind with overpriced mimosas and eggs that arrived stacked like architecture. Elise was already there, sipping orange juice with no champagne. She'd stopped drinking on weekdays after her second divorce. Angela slid into her seat with a smirk that was a little too polished. "Well," she said, drawing out the word like a show opener. "In case anyone hears rumors, no, I wasn't kicked out. It's just Mark being dramatic. You know how he is." Elise raised an eyebrow. Karen leaned in. Even Tanya, the one who never cared about anything but Botox deals, looked interested. Angela twirled a straw. "I made a joke. He overreacted. Locked the door, changed the code, men and their egos." A few chuckles. One nervous sip. Karen nodded slowly. "Yeah, but didn't you say something like you might meet someone better?" Angela waved it off. "Oh, please, it was a joke. He knew it was a joke. Come on. We've been married 27 years. He's heard worse." But Elise's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Wait," she said. "Did you actually say that to his face?" Angela blinked. "What? That line about meeting someone better?" Angela hesitated, laughed again, but now it cracked just slightly. "Elise, seriously, it was a joke." But Elise didn't laugh. Her eyes narrowed in a way Angela didn't like. "I mean, he's been distant for months, right? I just figured it was work stress, but now I hear from Tara from next door that he had the deed changed months ago, and the house? It's under a trust now. She saw the paperwork. You didn't know?" Angela stiffened. "That's ridiculous. He wouldn't. He couldn't." "Tara also saw the locksmith," Karen added. "The night you went out. Mark was out front with him, quiet, calm, like he had it all scheduled, not exactly impulsive." The table fell into an uncomfortable silence. The wind picked up just enough to rattle the napkins. Angela reached for her water glass, trying to look unbothered, but her grip was tight. Tanya, of all people, chimed in next. "Honestly, Ank, if I said something like that to Greg, he'd throw my ass in the pool. I mean, it's kind of brutal." Angela's jaw clenched. "It was sarcasm." Elise folded her napkin. "Sarcasm only works if the person you're married to still finds you funny." The words hit like a slap. Clean, sharp, worse because they came from Elise, the one friend who never took sides until now. Angela forced a smile. "You're all being ridiculous." But the rest of brunch was different. No one asked about her weekend plans. No one brought up the spa trip next month. The waitress came and went without a refill, and when the check came, Elise paid silently. Angela sat there, red dress glowing in the sun, surrounded by women who suddenly weren't her audience anymore because the story was already out. And in this version, she wasn't the victim. She was the punchline. The call came at 10:42 p.m. Angela was sitting on Dana's guest bed with a half-finished glass of red wine and 3 unread messages she'd sent Mark still hanging in the ether. Her phone lit up with Elise across the screen, and for the first time in 3 days, Angela felt something close to relief. If anyone could snap her out of this spiral, it was Elise. She hit answer quickly. Thank God. If I hear one more person say, but Elise's voice came in low, steady, not warm. Angela paused. What's wrong? A silence. Not the passive kind, the loaded kind. I just wanted to call before I made any decisions, Elise said. Because we've been friends for a long time. Angela let out a nervous laugh. Okay, why do you sound like a therapist delivering bad news? Another pause. I saw how you treated Mark. That hit differently. No small talk, no easing in, just direct, clinical. Angela swallowed. Oh, come on, Elise. Since when do you take his side? This isn't about sides, Elise replied. It's about patterns, and for a while now I've been ignoring things, laughing them off with you, pretending it was all harmless when you'd say things like, he's lucky to have me, or he'd fall apart without me. But today at brunch, that wasn't just a joke gone wrong. Angela's tone hardened. So what, you think I deserve this? Being locked out of my own house like some stray cat? Elise didn't bite. Her voice stayed painfully calm. No, I think you showed more restraint than most men would. And I think you've been pushing and prodding for years, assuming he'd never push back. Now he finally did, and you act like you've been blindsided. Angela opened her mouth. Nothing came out. And it's not just about him, Elise continued. It's how you've treated everyone. You call Dana needy when she vents. You laugh at Tanya's marriage behind her back. You told Karen her fiancé looks like a gym coach who smells like Axe. You've become cruel. The room shrank. The air went dry. Elise, you're blowing this out of... No, Elise cut in. I'm seeing it for what it is, and I think I need some space. Maybe a lot of space. Angela sat up straighter as if posture could fix perception. You're serious? After all these years? I can't keep being a front-row witness to someone else's mess and pretending it's wine-fueled sass. I thought you were just hurting. But lately it seems like you like making people smaller, and I can't be around that anymore. There was a click, then nothing. No, we'll talk later. No, maybe after things cool down. Just silence. Angela stared at the screen, then at the wine, then at her own reflection in the dark window. Eyes wide, chest tight. She waited. Maybe Elise would call back. Maybe this was all drama, but no second call came. Only a new kind of fear. Not fear of being alone. Fear of being seen without the spin. Without the loyal friend who used to smooth over the cracks in her personality like makeup on a bruise. Because now, even Elise had stopped pretending. And that meant the mirror she'd been dodging just turned into a spotlight. 3 days of silence. No replies, no return calls, not even a seen checkmark. Just Angela pacing Dana's hallway, refreshing old threads like they'd suddenly rewrite themselves. She tried everything. Emails, voice notes, even a mailed letter, which felt embarrassingly archaic the moment she sealed the envelope. Then late Thursday morning her phone rang. Not Mark, but the next closest thing, Samuel Finley, lit up across the screen. Their old estate attorney, the one who did their wills. The one she hadn't spoken to since the Christmas before last, when she called him boring for explaining trust law over eggnog. She answered on the second ring, smoothing her hair like he could somehow see her. Sam, thank God. Is he okay? His voice was pleasant, controlled, professional. He's fine, Angela. He asked me to contact you on your behalf. She blinked. On my behalf? Yes. Mark mentioned you might need some clarification. I still have your POA file in my archives, so I reviewed some things. Thought I'd walk you through them. She sat down. This felt like one of those calls where your doctor uses words like marginal and we caught it early, but you know it ends with surgery. Samuel cleared his throat to start. Mark's not angry. He wanted me to emphasize that he's just very, very clear. Angela frowned. Clear about what? Well, he said, his voice even, about boundaries, ownership, intent. What the hell does that mean? It means you were under the impression certain assets were shared. They were not. Angela scoffed. We were married 27 years, Sam. Everything was shared. No, Angela, Samuel said gently but firmly. You assumed everything was shared, he continued. Factual, not unkind. The business was incorporated under his name only. You never signed onto it. The operating agreement lists him as the sole shareholder. That was from the beginning. I helped him build that company. I don't doubt that. But the paperwork doesn't reflect emotional support. It reflects legal ownership. She stood up, pacing. Okay, but what about the pension? We talked about that for years. It's in a private trust, he replied, with him as trustee and sole beneficiary set up 18 months ago. I prepared the documents myself. What about the lake house? She asked, almost shouting now. That was purchased through a family LLC owned by his brother and managed by Mark. Your name has never appeared on the deed. She went quiet. Angela, Samuel asked. She didn't respond. She was staring at the wall, the photo of her and Mark on that cabin dock, her hand on his shoulder, smiling smugly. She remembered posing for that picture like it was a social media flex, but now it felt counterfeit, like she was photoshopped into someone else's life. Finally, she whispered, "But we were married." Samuel exhaled. There was no cruelty in his reply, just clean truth. Not anymore. Angela sat down slowly, the phone pressed too tight to her ear. The room felt smaller now, warmer, suffocating. Is there anything else? She asked, but it came out like someone asking a doctor how many months they have left. One last thing, Samuel said, his tone softening. Mark has no intention of dragging this through court. He said if you want to talk settlement, he's open to a respectful discussion. But everything is already in place. Nothing will revert, and he's asked for peace, not revenge. She nodded, forgetting he couldn't see her. Thank you, she muttered, barely. Samuel paused, then carefully added, I think he still wishes you well, Angela, but he's not looking back. The call ended, and for the first time she understood this wasn't a fight, it was an erasure, systematic, polite, final. She reserved the table under Harper. Not his name, not hers, just something neutral in case he was still screening her calls and emails. She didn't want him to see the restaurant name and ignore it out of spite. It was the same place they'd gone to every anniversary for the last 10 years, a dimly lit spot with overpriced duck confit and candles that flickered like they were always seconds from giving up. She wore the navy dress he used to compliment, the one that clung just right, the one she'd worn the night he got promoted and made that corny toast about building a life with someone who built you first. She remembered laughing, not at him, but at the fact she had someone that devoted. Now she was trying to weaponize nostalgia. The reservation was for 7 p.m. She got there at 6:45. She told the hostess he was parking. That old lie. She ordered a glass of wine she didn't want and sipped it slowly, watching the door every time it creaked open. An older couple came in. A man in a suit, a woman with a baby stroller. But not Mark. 7:05. No reply to her last message. Just dinner, no lawyers, no yelling, please. 7:12. She checked the mirror in her compact, fixed her lipstick, patted under her eyes, hiding the fatigue. She told herself he was just late. That maybe, just maybe, he needed to see her to remember her this way. Poised, polished, present. 7:18. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Just one line. No need, we said everything already. She stared at it, read it again. Like maybe the letters would rearrange, like maybe there was a second message coming. There wasn't. The waiter hovered nearby, polite. She waved him off, waited another 20 minutes just in case. Texted again twice, then deleted them both. She sat upright the way Elise used to coach her. Posture makes power. But her hands kept trembling, betraying the lie. At 7:42, the waiter returned with a small envelope. Ma'am, he said softly. Someone dropped this off earlier. Said it was for you. She blinked, took it. Inside there was a gift card, $200 to the same restaurant, and a handwritten note in that sharp, no-nonsense print she knew too well. Enjoy dinner with whoever you meet next. That was it. No signature, no explanation, just the clean stab of 7 words. She set the envelope down like it was hot, the table around her blurred, the sounds muffled, the laughter from other diners suddenly obscene. She looked down at the plate the waiter had quietly delivered. Roasted sea bass, her usual. It looked beautiful and entirely wrong because she wasn't hungry. She was humiliated. And worst of all, she was alone by design. Mark hadn't ghosted her. He'd written her out of the script. She sat there a while longer, not crying, not breaking down, just realizing there would be no grand confrontation, no argument to win. He wasn't trying to hurt her. He was proving he didn't need her, and in doing that, he had hurt her more deeply than shouting ever could. It was Thursday when she finally broke the mirror. Not with her fist. Not dramatically, just by accident. That's what she told herself. She'd been moving a lamp too close to the wall, and it tilted. tapped the glass hard enough to fracture it down the center, a crooked, cruel line, like a scar across her reflection. She stared at it for 10 full minutes. On one side, the woman she thought she still was, sharp features, clean contour, expensive hair. On the other, something else, softer, in the worst way. Puffy eyes, foundation clinging to the lines around her mouth, mascara stains trailing down like guilty confessions. This wasn't her bathroom. This wasn't her house. This wasn't her anything. She'd been staying in Dana's spare bedroom for over a week now. And while Dana tried to be supportive in that tight-lipped older sister way, buying her lattes, dropping off folded towels without comment, the tension was thick enough to cut with a butter knife, especially after the lawyer's call. The truth was, Angela hated this house. The art on the walls was generic, the kitchen smelled like garlic she didn't cook, and the bed was too soft, like it never expected someone to actually sleep in it. It wasn't her space. It wasn't built for her routines, her rituals, her control. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that everyone knew. Elise hadn't texted back. Karen had gone cold. Tanya posted some passive-aggressive meme about, "Some people only love you when they need to be loved." And Angela knew damn well who it was for. Even Dana had slipped once, muttering, "Maybe next time you'll think before cutting herself off like she'd burned her mouth on something too honest." Angela tried to call Mark again 3 nights ago. Blocked. She even emailed his assistant pretending it was about taxes. The response, a single line, "Please direct all non-legal correspondence through counsel." That hit her harder than the locked door. Mark had always been the gentle one, the quiet one. He'd give second, third, fourth chances. He'd take a hit and just walk it off. Never raising his voice, never making her pay in obvious ways. But she'd mistaken silence for softness. And now, he wasn't silent. He was gone. Every room she entered felt like it knew, like the couch was judging her, like the framed photos of Dana's kids whispered things behind her back. She started wearing sunglasses indoors, stopped answering video calls, avoided brunch like it was radioactive. Because this wasn't just a breakup, it was an erasure. A clean, surgical removal of her from a life she once ruled over. And what hurt more than the exclusion was the ease of it. Mark didn't shout, didn't threaten, didn't beg. He just stepped out of the frame. And the more she screamed into the void, the more it echoed back one simple truth. She wasn't irreplaceable. She was optional. The mirror cracked again when she tried to wipe it. A second fracture, splitting her reflection into thirds. Now there were 3 versions of her staring back, none of them in control. She sat down on the toilet lid and pulled her knees to her chest like a child. No tears. Not anymore. Those had run dry 2 nights ago, somewhere between the unopened wine bottle and the pile of laundry she'd stopped folding. She thought about texting him one last time, something simple, "I miss you." Or maybe just, "I'm sorry." But she didn't because she knew he didn't need to hear it and he wouldn't answer even if he did. She told herself it was just a detour. She told Dana she needed to clear her head and get some air. Said it casually like she didn't already have the address punched into her GPS, like she hadn't been thinking about this drive for 4 days straight. Like she hadn't rehearsed what she'd say if the timing was perfect and the universe finally gave her one last moment to rewrite the ending. It was just after 9. Skies were soft and blue at the edges, the kind of evening that used to mean tea and slippers and quiet jokes about how boring they'd both become. But the car ride was anything but peaceful. Her nails drummed the steering wheel. Her pulse climbed with every streetlight passed. Then she turned onto the old block. There it was, the house that used to be hers. Only it didn't look like hers anymore. The lawn was freshly trimmed. The porch had new sconces, sleek, modern ones that didn't match her old country chic lanterns. The welcome mat was gone, replaced with bare concrete. And the windows, every one of them, glowed warm, lived in, like the house had taken a deep breath since she left and finally relaxed. And in the front room, behind gauzy cream curtains, she saw him, Mark, sitting on the same armchair he always claimed was bad for his back. Reading a hardcover book, no phone, no tea, fifth. Just a glass of something amber beside him and a Labrador curled at his feet. A dog. He bought a damn dog. She stared. Frozen. He looked good, healthy. The deep frown that used to sit between his brows was gone. His shoulders didn't look slumped anymore. He looked like someone who wasn't waiting for anything, especially not her. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone. She dialed his number again, rings, then voicemail again. She closed her eyes, jaw tight, and then her phone buzzed in her hand. One new message. Unknown sender. She tapped it open. "You looked for better, I chose peace." 7 words, like the last page of a book you didn't realize you were never going to finish. Angela stared at the screen until the words blurred. There was no anger in them, no malice, just a statement of fact. The final line of a man who didn't flinch when disrespected. He just walked quietly towards something better, without the need for drama, without fanfare, without her. She looked back toward the window. He hadn't moved, still reading, still calm. The dog stirred, then settled again, its tail flicking once before going still. She could have knocked. She could have walked up to the door and begged, screamed, pleaded, but she didn't, because even from the car, even with the lights shining, she could see it clearly now. That door, it didn't just close, it disappeared. And she wasn't outside. She was nowhere.